We've all heard, seen, or are even using the crazy popular social media platform and app, TikTok. It's taken Gen Z by storm. It's the #1 app on the Apple App Store. On Google Play, it has more than 1 billion, yes, that is 1 billion with a B, downloads. So what would be the problem with the app other than it's wildly popular? And that is the topic of today's podcast episode. And I'm so happy and grateful to be joined by my good friend and new Senate colleague, Senator Tracy Pennycuick. Senator Pennycuick, welcome to the program. So for our listeners, can you give us that 30-second elevator pitch of who you are and how you came to the Senate?
Oh, thank you so much, KPH. My favorite KPH. I am a 26-year Army veteran, a helicopter pilot. I am a combat veteran. I'm a mother of 4, grandmother of 2, small business owner, and I spent 2 years in the House of Representatives. And then my dear friend Bob Mensch retired, and here I am in the Senate.
We are so grateful to have you here in the Senate, and nothing like a 26-year combat veteran to have in the trenches with you when you're fighting these battles here in Harrisburg. So you are in the Senate now, and you are chairing the committee that I chaired last session, the Senate Communications and Technology Committee. Your military background, I think it's really interesting when we start talking about cyber warfare and espionage. And that's sort of my segue into today's topic, which is TikTok. So the app is owned by the firm ByteDance, and they are based in Beijing. Last July, NPR put out what I thought was a really interesting article stating how TikTok would begin putting new limits on Chinese workers' access to U.S. user data. So up until last July, it seems that there were absolutely no mechanisms in place to stop an employee from looking at any U.S. users' data. And despite assurances from ByteDance's lobbyists and their PR professionals, we are continuing to hear from top officials in our nation's military and law enforcement agencies. They're raising serious concerns about this app. So Christopher Wray, who serves as the director of the FBI, said that his bureau has a number of concerns with TikTok. And during a congressional hearing, Director Wray said that, well, he spelled out the bureau's concern when he stated, and let me quote this so I get it right. His quote was, "They include the possibility that the Chinese government could use it to control data collection on millions of users or control the recommendation algorithm, which could be used for influence operations if they so choose, or to control software on millions of devices, which gives it an opportunity to potentially, technically compromise personal devices." The last line, potentially, technically compromise personal devices. Wow. So that's a little above the issue of, are they seeing what shoes I'm buying to target my future ads, right? So this is a lot deeper than trying to sell me something that I may be interested in, right? I mean, what's your take on that?
This is so much more than that. Really, we are looking at a foreign government looking at Americans' personal information. That's the bottom line. If they're going to get into your device, they're going to get into every app you have on that device, all your photos on that device, with the geo-trackers that are on those photos of where they were taken, when they were taken. They are going to be able to get all your contacts, how often you text, what are in your texts. The potential for them to exploit Americans' information is huge. The fact that China is our biggest adversary, big problem. And the fact that we have state employees that use TikTok all the time.
So not only are they on state devices, but they're also on state networks, right?
Correct.
And so the FBI director, Christopher Wray, you touched on this. He indicated that since they are based in Beijing, Chinese laws essentially requires companies to, and this was his own quote, so I'm going to quote this, do whatever the government wants them to do in terms of sharing information or serving as a tool of the Chinese government.
Absolutely.
It's frightening.
It's very frightening. And we should be raising the alarm both at the local level, the state level, and the federal level.
And our top intelligence officials are raising that red flag on TikTok. And this is not a partisan issue, right? These are people...
Not at all. This is both sides of the aisle are coming together and saying, this is a threat to our national security. We have got to be aggressive in banning TikTok on government computers, government phones, laptops, iPads, the whole kit and caboodle.
So the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, their director, Bill Burns, spoke to PBS about the app, and he stated, this is another quote, "It's genuinely troubling to see what the Chinese government could do to manipulate TikTok." And Senator Mitt Romney from Utah said it best, I think, when he said our nation was fixated on our skies over a Chinese spy balloon a few weeks ago. And his tweet on February 3rd read, "A big Chinese balloon in the sky and millions of Chinese TikTok balloons on our phones. Let's shut them all down." Right? So the military is not allowing TikTok to be used on its devices and networks.
Correct.
Right? And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg of where this may all be headed. You have that military background. Where are we? What do you think we need to do?
Well, definitely the military had the right intention shutting it down. We do not want to give any opportunity to a foreign adversary to have access to any of our citizens' information, but especially not our military. So we know that China is not friendly to the U.S. We know that their whole intent is to be number one in the world. They're not. And the benign TikTok app as, oh, well, it's just a little app. How bad can it be? The reality is it's the Trojan horse to get in the door, and we've got to shut it down.
Yeah. And it's not just Republicans.
Nope.
Democrats, too. They're pushing against wide bans of TikTok. It should be bipartisan. National security issues, they are not Republican or Democratic issues. This is America versus our adversaries. And as the chair of the Communications and Technology Committee, you and I are working on legislation that would ban the app's usage on our state-owned devices and our state-owned networks.
Absolutely. And that is so critically important. Think about what email you look at on your phone. If you had TikTok on that is compromising to the state of Pennsylvania, that you innocently are reading an email, but China's looking at that same email. We have made ourselves vulnerable. We have left a window open when we've locked the front door to let the robbers right in your house. So we really need to shut it down, take it off government computers, government laptops. If you want to have it on your personal device and you want to leave yourself exposed, that's your personal decision. But at the state level, we need to shut it down, and we need to protect the Commonwealth from exploitation by the Chinese. We need to protect ourselves from any kind of foreign influence or even just the ability for them to data mine.
Well, and earlier this year, Treasurer Stacey Garrity banned the app's usage on her department's devices and networks. Also a woman with a distinguished military career herself. Where do you think we're going with all of this?
Well, I think we're waking up a little bit to the challenges of technology and the rollout of applications. I think it's really important that we look at our cybersecurity to make sure that our personal data is not being sold. When we sign up for a newsletter, that it's not going to 3 other organizations, some of whom maybe you don't want your information to go to, but it's also maybe not vetted.
And point of clarification here, we do e-news blasts every week, so as state senators, we have those email lists. We guard them with our lives.
We do not sell them.
Share. No, absolutely not. I don't like when that's done to my information.
No.
I would never do that to my constituents. I know you wouldn't either.
Exactly. So we're looking at cybersecurity. We're also looking at bringing technology companies to Pennsylvania for employment, bringing jobs back to Pennsylvania. But I think it's really, really important that we look at the big picture, broadband expansion. You've done great work to make sure we're expanding our broadband across the rural parts of Pennsylvania where, Elk County maybe could use a little help getting some broadband up there. And that's important so that our citizens in the Commonwealth have access to telemedicine, that have access to online education opportunities, have access to additional job opportunities, regardless of where they live in the state. So those are some of the things that we're going to be working on in the committee. I'm so grateful for this being our first bill that we're going to, pull out of committee, and it's a great start. We've got a lot of work to do in the committee, so I'm glad you're my vice chair. It's going to be great fun.
Well, I'm grateful to be able to be there and help in any way, and just appreciate your background and your take on all of these issues. So can you give our listeners a little update on what the timelines look like? We're going to hit the ground running? You've really laid out those items that we're going to be working on as a committee. What does the timeline look like?
So TikTok will be coming up at our first committee meeting next week.
Well, that's fantastic. And we clearly, under your leadership, have quite the agenda. And I am so looking forward to working with you. And so much of this is not partisan, and so much of it is just common sense. So Pennsylvanians give government very sensitive information. When you're born here in Pennsylvania, you get a birth certificate. If you are put out of work due to no fault of your own, you're eligible for unemployment compensation. If you want to be able to move around the Commonwealth, you apply for a driver's license. You may become a physician or a hairstylist. You will need to have professional certificates, and you'll be remitting taxes from those professions and paying your taxes. Having that information hacked or leaving, as you said, that door open to nefarious actors is got to always be a top concern for us.
Absolutely. And, with every new app that comes out and every new program and software, we always have to be looking for vulnerability. We always have to be looking at who can exploit that software or that app to get to our personal information. So cybersecurity is huge. We need to make sure that our cloud-based security systems are 100%.
And you're going to be having a hearing on that as well.
We're having a hearing. Yes, we are. We're having a hearing to talk about cyber security and cloud-based storage, and how do we keep that safe? Because that's important, because we hear it all the time about people's personal information was stolen, my identity was stolen, and my life was upended. Well, we want to make sure that people of Pennsylvania don't have to worry about that. Their stuff is going to be secure, they're going to be safe, and we're not going to be giving our personal information, our state information, to China.
That's fantastic. So we're going to have a hearing, and we're going to learn more about securing cloud-based information storage, making sure it's secure, and then moving legislation to assure that our state devices and our state networks aren't inadvertently part of a cybersecurity challenge. And I think we are off to a great start. I want to thank you for helping to address major issues through your leadership with this committee. I'm very grateful. So today's guest was State Senator Tracy Pennycuick. Tracy, where can our listeners go to find out more about you and your work in the Senate and on the Communications and Technology Committee?
That would be senatortracypennycuick.com. And I would love for you to follow me on Facebook, also Senator Tracy Pennycuick. And I'm on Twitter, and I am also on Instagram and LinkedIn.
That's great. And Pennycuick's spelled not like it sounds. So why don't you tell our listeners how to spell it?
It is Pennycuick.
Very good. If you have any questions about this program or you want to check out other episodes, please visit my website at senatorkristen.com. And that's Kristen with 2 I's. I have those name issues as well. I want to thank everyone for listening and look forward to talking to you again soon.